more than 10 in class already? Yes. Usually during this discussion, another 10 or so will join in, and then we will be able to close out on the questions and answers that follows, and then we'll move on to the lesson for the day, okay? Chinese, you start for us today. Lessons take away from the last class.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, my major striking point from the last class was that part where you need to specify correct details of items for replacement. You know, as it helps, you know, contribute in terms of making decision or best value. And secondly, is that part where you need to have rapport with your finance personnel, as you know, finance and management has good relationship, and that's my takeaway from this class.
Super, thank you. Tosin. Tosin, you can go ahead and give us a takeaway.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So my takeaway for last week, though it's quite much from I want to try to gather my thoughts from the total cost of ownership. You know, though from there's a particular class that talked about that if the cost of building a facility is say a 5 million, for example, that the cost of operation or maintenance and everything about the facility could be 90% during the lifetime and lifespan of the facility. So the last class reiterated that for me. Then the part of the direct cost and indirect costs, though I know that also exists before, but it helped me, give me a better perspective to, you know, the understanding the value of it to making a financial decision for an investment or to acquiring an asset.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's hear from Diana.
All right, so my takeaway from the last class, good evening, sir, good evening, class.
Good evening.
Is on emphasis on value. And when we talk about costing, we look at cost in terms of best value. We are getting the best value, and that is also relative. So it depends on what is the strategic direction for that time. Like we saw in the example, I want a phone that will work for 1 month. So for you, that's your best value. So if it meets what is your target for that period, I think that is best value for you. But also we took it further to say we should be clear in our specifications, and that is the way we can defeat management. Because if you are saying I have 2 options, the 2 options should be your best options. That's it. So without one, you will say they gave me what I didn't bargain for. Exactly. So I think for me that was the key.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right, Adekule.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Good evening, class.
Good evening.
Yes, my take home from the last class.
You're muted. You're still muted. John, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, good.
Okay. Deferred maintenance as a formal and informal listing of unaccomplished maintenance. So it is cost due to lack of funds. So some people, they don't have the funds to push for the maintenance. So they bend the maintenance due to lack of fund to go back to it maybe later in the future when funds is on ground. So that's my take on for the next class.
And the real lesson from that is whatever is not being done is being documented. Facility managers, if you have something that should have been done that has not been done, you should have it in the document. That's what makes you a professional. If it's not been done and you've not documented it in your deferred maintenance log, then you have failed as an individual, not just a business that is failing. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Victor. Victor, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. It's just my network is making me unable to. Okay, my takeaway.
If your audio is good, go ahead.
All right, sir. My takeaway from the last class, actually, you just said it just now, under deferred maintenance, which is a formal listing of the tax that you haven't accomplished, your maintenance tax, due to probably shortage of funds or personnel, or probably someone from the maintenance, you know, when there's hierarchy in every company and the maintenance might not want things to go like this, why the facility manager wanted things like this. So because of that, they couldn't go through. So, and based on what you just said, that we should always keep a document of all those maintenance that we haven't done. That was my takeaway from the last class. Thank you, sir.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Thank you, Victor. Tosin, your hand is up.
There is something I couldn't take away while I was doing the assessment. It's about the opportunity cost of error in building like.
Yes.
I couldn't.
Were you want to throw that question back to your class?
Is that?
Were you want to throw the question back to your class?
No.
Okay, someone else did.
Yeah, I think someone else.
I saw the question on your group and I expected more comments. When there's a question like that, don't be shy that your answer will be wrong. Just drop any answer that comes into your head at that time. I like a conversation that is intellectually stimulating, right? Somebody drops a question, drop it there. You may not be correct. Like there was some discussion we've had in the past where I had to jump in and do one or two corrections, but let's not hold back what we are thinking because we think it's not going to be correct, right? Just drop it there. That's why we're all in class. If we're all perfect professionals, there will be no need for this program because we're learning. That's why we are here, okay? So Tosin, the whole idea of opportunity cost of error correction is telling yourself, don't move from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3 with the hope that this problem that you are seeing will fix it later. You get? So okay. I use an example of, let me use a simple example. The piping we are using is on the design. We design the piping for water will be buried in the wall, right? But the design carries PVC pipes that use glue to gum. We know that as well, right? The same design is telling us that there will be a booster pump that will pressurize the water so that the shower can run very well because the madam likes her shower, you know, rushing very well. They probably want to use some of these hurricane type shower, which will need to be pressurized. After that point, right from design and bill of quantities and contract documents, you already know that PVC pipes with glue and fire will expire within a short time and the pressure will lead to leakages inside the wall, right? That is the point you need to fix that error. The moment you saw that problem in the design, you say, no, let's change the pipe to multi-layer pipe, right? So that we can meet with this pressure. Or let's drop the pressure requirement and not have a shower that draws very high pressure and things like that. Otherwise, you will go on from there to you lay foundation, you lay block. As you finish laying blocks, start doing the piping line before you now realize that you need to fix it. The cost of fixing that error during design is cheaper than fixing it when you laid block work and put pipes inside, right? Now, if you didn't fix it during block work and you now say, let's fix it after you have painted, the cost is also different, isn't it? The cost of fixing it during when you have painted is higher than the one that will fix it when you've just done block work, and then higher, which is also higher than the one doing drawing. If you still didn't fix it after you have painted, and then will now populate and occupy the building and start having all kinds of issues, and you now come and fix it, the cost of that error correction is also higher. So if you compare the cost of fixing that error from the earlier stages of the development cycle to the later stage of the development cycle, it gets higher and higher and higher. So no need to build an error into your building. Instead, fix the error as soon as it is. That's what that financial instruction is. So, because the whole idea of money is understand how money works. So you don't make decisions about money that is foolish. You understand? Don't make decisions about money that is foolish. Don't say, keep working, let's see how it goes. And then later, you now say, oh, I think we have to cut it, remove it. So sometimes we make sure decisions even for small things and as well as big things. But that mindset needs to be fixed because money is being wasted. A technician will tell you, don't worry now, I'll do it again, no problem. I won't charge you for extra labor, but the extra material, who's going to pay for it? Right? So we should avoid all those works. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mike, do you want to give us a takeaway from the last class before you give the question you have? Mike, your hand is up. Go ahead.
Oh, yes. Good day, everyone. Unfortunately, I was not in the last class, so I've not really gone through the material, so I've been caught. But I have a question. Look, going from the interactions I've had in the last 5 minutes, and talking about financial management, and I want to start with giving an example of what I've tried to do on my site, on one of the sites I manage, which we run solely on generators. We are not connected to the national grid. So we have a situation where we know that we do our servicing of generators after every 250 to 300 hours, or at worst 400 hours. And we try to make available the oil and oil filters for the servicing. We do them in-house. So at the point, we recommended that we have the materials for this servicing spanning over 6 months. But what we got directive to say that we should only do it month in, month out. So my argument against doing it month in, month out was that if we buy these certain items for 12 Naira for this month, given the inflation that we have been having in the past 1 year, we probably will be buying that same item for 20 Naira in the next 2 months. Exactly. So trying to save costs. So the same thing we do for diesel. Right now I'm expecting a 40,000 liter AGO tomorrow at 304 Naira. It was 288 about 6 weeks ago. We have capacity for over 100,000 liters, and I tried then to say, let's have about 100 liters so that, we will, to cushion the effect of us getting the AGO at a higher. So my question is this, how do I help to manage or cut down costs if I am not allowed to? How do I do that?
Okay. I think I'll also recommend that as quickly as possible, you get your hand on the video of the class with me, because your reasoning about financials about FM financing and cost cutting. It's completely opposite to the principles we taught in the class. So you need to learn it again, 100% from scratch, right? Now, if something was 12 naira, and by next month, I'm afraid it will become 20 naira. And I'm feeling there's a likelihood that I'll be losing 8 naira. So I want to buy 2. 12 times 2, 24, so that I will save the 8 naira on next month, right? Now, how is that a savings when I am tying down money, extra 12 naira down? Now, if that 12 naira in the hands of my organization can make 8 naira and 1 kobo, I will be foolish to buy 2, because I'll be losing that 1 kobo, right? So ask the question, what is the financial situation of my organization? Are we buoyant, surplus cash that we're leaving in the bank in fixed deposits? Then buy as many as possible. But are we struggling, even taking bank loans to run, or having vendors come back to be paid after 60 days so that we can have money to run and enjoy the value of what they've given us, right? If that's what we are doing, it will also be foolish to even buy extra 1 month, no matter what's going to happen to it. Because that money for buying that extra 1 month, I'm not seeing it, I shouldn't see it only in terms of the cost saving from the differential, but the cost generation opportunity, which we call internal rate of return for your organization. How much does the organization make for every 1 naira invested per month, per year? Once you have an idea of what that means for the organization, you will become more cautious in committing your organization to heavy spending upfront. And that's connecting our finance class to our strategic facility planning class. When an FM moves to that level of strategic facility planning, right, you become able to make better decisions that align with management situation or management position. So for a start, Michael, as much as possible, adopt whatever your management is telling you. If they say, if they say stop diesel for 1 week, stop it for 1 week. If they say, buy equipment for 1 month, buy for 1 month. So you will use that knowledge, tap into more management information to understand how the nation is doing with funds, with financing. Instead of pushing the nation to go and borrow money to give me so I can fill my 100,000 liters of diesel, if they borrow that money, let them use it to do business and generate profit on it and give me the expensive money I need to spend later. If I can start speaking that language to management, they will see me and them as being on the same boat, speaking the same language and aligned in the same way. So that is something that is critical. So watch the class for the financial class, financial management class, and the strategic facility planning class. Link those 2 videos together the day you watch them, one after the other. It will just help to reset how you think about money, okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Let's have Moses. Give us a takeaway. Moses, are you there? Is Moses there? Okay, Francis, take away from the last one.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, class. Sir, can we, as part of the advice you just gave Mr. Michael, I want to suggest something which I've seen happen with a particular developer. You can negotiate with some vendors to deliver, like he said, they have capacity for 100,000 liters, I think.
Yeah.
Instead of buying 10,000 every month and you are anticipating increase in because of inflation, you can negotiate with some vendors if the company can be paying at the end of every month. So if right now they are paying at delivery, you can renegotiate and say, tell to the organization that let's be paying at the end of every month so that I can always get 2,000 instead of 1,000 for every month's payment ahead. Once you pay him for this month, I've collected for 2 months already. He's going to still save costs, I believe, because I have a developer friend. If he wants to, he has 2 different sites. He will collect iron for the 2 sites and pay for 1 site. He already has an understanding with the suppliers and is really helping him. I've seen that has saved him a lot of money during this inflation period, just in this year.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to suggest that too for Mr. Michael. And for
thank you,
for
Francis.
me in the last class, yes, sir. In the last class, the cost of alternative decision, I tag it as key. Is very key. That is what you just explained now. You must always know what your organization financial capacity is before you can make all those decisions. That is for the cost. And for best value, sir, I used to define best value as, I say to people, nothing is expensive. You like it, is what you want and you can afford it. That is best value. Am I correct?
Wrong.
Okay. Because you define it as getting the right specification of goods and services to meet your requirement and best price. You said possible best
lowest
price.
Not best price. Lowest
No, you
price.
said yes. No, but you said possible best price.
Lowest practicable. Lowest practicable. Practicable is the word.
The meaning.
The word there is lowest practicable cost. Specification at the lowest practicable cost. That is
yes,
best value.
that means you are sure that you have done your market analysis, price analysis.
So the mindset that the cheapest is not good is what I try to erase from your mind. The cheapest is the best. If you specify correctly, and it is based on that specification, you are looking for the cheapest. You match that specification with the cheapest price for that specification. That is your best value.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I get that now. Okay. So, and again, you said we should always use a discounting approach for project life cycle costing analysis. And I think that should be able to save us from, that should be able to save us from even projected variation, right?
Yes. Okay. So the whole idea is
because after
when you compare alternatives, right? If one alternative is going to run for 5 years, and you're going to have a replacement for another 5 years, but alternative B is going to run for 10 years, it's going to last long for 10 years. You cannot do a 5-year comparison to a 10-year comparison with useful life, right? And you cannot compare today's cost of buying anything with tomorrow's cost of running or operating that thing. The way to convert tomorrow's cost to today's cost so that you can compare today is what we call discounting method. You apply a PV factor, present value factor, to that future cost. Okay.
Okay. All right, sir. Thank you. That's my takeaway, sir.
Thank you. Let's hear from Chris.
Anyone at all? Okay, good evening, class.
Yes, go ahead, Chris.
Okay, my takeaway is on this foundation, the facility condition index calculation, which has to do with deferred maintenance and the plus capital renewal over the current replacement value. And then about budgeting. Though the definition of budgeting from here is somehow ambiguous, but with the layman idea of budgeting about making a future plan, of financial increment on what will be done and how you are going to be doing, and also a guideline for an organization to see how they can manage their finances to meet up their needs without going into liability. It's part of what I took out.
Thank you. I think I tried to make it clear that definition of budget. Budget is primarily a plan that will take you to your expected end. And secondarily, the financial aspects. If you don't have a plan, you don't have a budget. These are the things I want to achieve, ABC. These are the things I will do to achieve them. If I finish creating that full plan, I now say, how much will I receive? How much will I spend while doing those things I have discussed? That's what the budget is. Many of us tend to separate the two, and we focus on the financial, which is the cost and revenue, expense and revenue. And so all those many questions you used to get during budgeting time about preparing your budget and answering questions about budget is because you don't have a plan that the budget is overlaid on. So don't go ahead and create a budget, create a plan for your maintenance, for your operations, for your capital renewal, for your projects. It is after you have that plan, you will now lay over its revenue and cost analysis. That's what we call your budget. So both of them together is what we call your budget. Okay. Just to bring that home, when you look at the big picture strategy analysis, that strategic model we use, where you start from the strategic purpose level, which is the customer, to the corporate strategy, right, which is the business strategy, down to the business unit strategic planning, where you have the FM and other business units. Below that, you now have the tactical planning. One item in the tactical planning is your budget. There are 4 items here: your operations plan, your maintenance plan, your budget, and your project management or construction management plan. Now, in that tactical area, the budget is something that comes last after you have created your operational plan, your maintenance plan, and your project plan. Your budget is like the tool that links all of these plans together, because that's where you now talk about the money that's going to come in and money that's going to go out. Okay. Who have not spoken today? Gift, are you in class today?
I have not spoken, but they have said what I wanted to say.
Okay, when is going the approach of I concur?
So I've not spoken too.
All right, Daniel, please go ahead.
Okay, sir. All right, my takeaway of last class was actually on the budget. I was able to pick up some idea about what actually budgeting entails, and the type of approaches you go to make budget, and the budget method. That authoritative, I was able to learn that authoritative is that budget that is actually emanating from the management end of the organization, where you as the manager keys into it to see how it works for you and work based on the budget of the company. And then the participative is when you, as the manager, is the person that generates or brings up the key pointers in the budgeting or the expenses for that particular fiscal year, which you now go to present to the management, and they are able to align. You're able to align your ideas about the budgeting and the work for that year. And then, of course, the combined is the one that does with the two of them. But then, moving down, you talked about the budget methods. Actually, I was able to understand the incremental, the zero-based, and the activity-based. Getting to know that incremental is when you start from history, the historical expenses you've made, to move into the new year.
And then the zero is when you jettison that history and you begin to pick your expenses based on need in terms of cost without having to look into your historical cost. And then the activity base is when you think about what are the most essential activities you want to perform for that fiscal year. And that's what you take up as your budget for that year. Any other thing can come in, but at least it is basically premised on what are the job deliverables you want to do for that year. So this whole budget thing, I think, was something that I actually picked up on the last page.
And if you're doing a brand new, if you're starting a brand new operation, for example, you're starting a company, or you're starting an FM program for a new site, for example,
okay.
You will have to start. It is wise to start with activity-based budgeting, so that you can actually look from strategy to operations, and then come up with things you must do, and then you now start looking into how to budget for them. So the line items you create will be on plain, you create your own line item from scratch.
Okay, but from taking it from the way you explain now, if it's a new project, it means that you're bringing in your history or your budget base from your previous projects. Because
no, if you have a previous project and you want to bring the line items of the way your company normally budgets to a new project, that one is zero-based, right? But if this is the first thing you are doing in life or as a company, you have not done anything before, there's no baseline that you can say, this is what we have learned, this is the template we need to work with. You now want to do budget for the first time with no reference to anything in the past.
Okay.
That's an activity based. Why we advise you to consciously make it activity based, so you can actually look at the things that will be value adding from strategy. What do you want to achieve before you start talking about money?
Okay, so that is peculiar to that project.
Yeah, because that is like your spec. So a company, you probably just went, incorporated a company today, and you got a first project to manage the FM. You use that approach, activity-based budgeting, so you can drive straight to what is necessary in that project. So you don't add anything that is not value added. Unlike when you carry a template from other people's projects and you see all those line items and you feel obliged to put money here and there, when that's not the case with the current project. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Princess, have I heard your voice for a while? The Princess here. I'm going to dedicate the remaining few minutes. Oh, well, let me allow Princess, allow Gives, allow lower ABC is just coming in. Ngozi, are you here? Do you want to give us a takeaway from the last class as well?
I'm not stable. I'm just good evening. I'm not stable.
Yeah, you're not stable. Are you going off the class and into the class again and again?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Anyway, it's important.
Right,
it's important to dedicate the time for this class. So we all agree it's a formal program, but I'll excuse you for today. Chaos, do you want to speak?
Really, sir. Someone has mentioned my main takeaway. Another thing is the life cycle costing. It was a good lesson for me on understanding it, and it's but I needed to know more about its applications, practical application of that life cycle costing, or how to estimate it. Like, do we have a formula for it, like we have for the facility condition index? Do we have any formula for that?
Life cycle costing is just about listing the cost all cost categories for today and all cost categories for tomorrow. Today's cost, for example, is acquisition, installation, commissioning. Those are all today's costs. Tomorrow's cost includes operations, maintenance, manpower, overhauling. And when at those tomorrow's costs, I need to identify all of them one by one. That's basically what I'm doing. So it's not really like a formula. The only thing you need a formula for is how to convert the amounts of tomorrow's cost to today's money. So a line item that says I'm going to do an upgrade or overhaul of my gen in 2024, for example, that gen overhauling in 2024 is maybe 3 million naira, right? How much is 3 million of 2024 in today's money, right? So that's what you need a formula for. The formula for present value is you add a factor, you include a rate, that's the discount rate or inflation rate or any rate. You multiply the number of years, the rate, and a discount factor, or what we call a PV factor. That PV factor is not something I can give to you because usually when you encounter that in an exam, the factor will be given to you, or they will tell you to bring a 4 figures table to the exam hall where you will see the factors. When you count number of years and you count principal amount and the intersecting points, you will see the factor to use inside your calculation there. Okay, so it's just that factor that you need to look out for whenever you're doing that calculation. But for most of us that have, we use Excel. Excel is very rich. Excel has a lot of templates. So just search in Excel templates, in your normal Excel, in your computer, Excel online especially, for life cycle templates. You will see options will come up where you can put in your starting cost and your continuous cost, and then it will convert them according to the number of years for you. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Hello, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Daniel, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Okay, I just wanted to point out something from what Mr. Kios just asked. When he was talking about practicability, as in the practical meaning of this life cycle, I think he was trying to ask, or if in my own understanding, for instance, a stakeholder wants to start a project. He wants somebody to give him an idea of what this whole thing is going to cost over the life of that project. Probably what he's expecting is, okay, you as a project manager will tell this one, okay, at the time you're designing, you're installing, you're commissioning, this is how much it's going to cost. Over the years that you're going to run this, probably if your house is going to, if you're projecting 50 years, for instance, for your house to stand, then you now calculate what is going to cost to operate, the rent, what do you call it now, the wages, maintenance costs, everything over those 80 years, including overhauls and everything, so that you put a proper amount on this cost, so that the landlord is able to see by the time you're beginning to get rent from all of his occupants, how much is going to amount over the next 80 years. That's what I think he was trying to ask about. And that's just what I want.
Okay, I think that explanation you just gave is very apt. Life cycle costing is used for two scenarios. One, to be able to project future costs, total costs, and know now what the investment will be like. And two, for comparison of options. If I have option A versus option B, rent an office in the mall or buy land and build a duplex in Lekki to run my business over 25 years, over 50 years horizon, what would be my total life cycle cost for either option? Buy a generator or install solar, what would be my overall life cycle? What would be the best option financially? So we use life cycle cost analysis to do comparison. Okay, so yes, thank you for that insight, Daniel. Okay, I think I'll go straight into today's class. We've had a very robust discussion. Unless you have a real life situation you want us to address quickly, if you have a situation you want us to address quickly, we can accommodate that for a few minutes and get into today's class. I'll share my screen for procurement. Any problems, solution section from anybody, any issues, career, work? All right, I'm going to go straight into today's class as we look at procurement and contract. And screen visible to everybody.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
And since we started this discussion, we've not had any breaking of my audio, even with my video has been on throughout, right?
It has been excellent.
I think I just learned something now from this experience. Yesterday, I was in a 4th floor building, and I was on the ground floor. My network was terrible. I couldn't get through into the internet. After I relocated to the top floor, I got very good signal. So instead of writing off my base in Yaba and saying this place in Ikeja is better for network, I'm kind of figuring out that it's more about your position in the building, because in that base in Yaba, I'm on the ground floor in a 2-story building, and here I'm on the 1st floor in a 1-story building. So most likely is how high I am off the ground, because I'm using the very same NTN modem today, and I've not had a single buffer in anything I've done today. So that's something I think it's the learning and how we interact with technology, so that when we are trying to get good signal, I think this is pretty much what used to be, those days of GPRS, those phones that there's only one mast in an entire community. People tend to go to the highest point, climb up field or something to get signal. I think that's what it's about. But I have learned that, and I'll probably just keep trying to make sure I'm at the highest altitude to get good signal. All right, so we're going to look at procurement and contract management, and we'll start with procurement. The systematic process by which an organization reaches contracts for the purchase of goods and services. It is different from purchasing. Purchasing is specific buying activity or the placing of orders. So you could be doing purchasing when you simply just buy or you place an order. There is no contracts. There is no agreements. You just, I want to buy, you want to sell, take money and take my service. But when we have a systematic process to reach contracts, then we're saying we're doing procurement. That's why we're doing procurement and contracts together in the same lesson. The essence of procurement management is to maximize cost effectiveness and achieve the best value for money. Don't forget the definition of best value. So the whole procurement department, or everything we do as procurement and professionals, is geared towards achieving best value, right? And to achieve best value, again, we just need to remind ourselves is clear specification at the lowest practical cost. Procurement also helps to protect and worry with the purchasers so that you don't make a mistake. You buy and have buyer's remorse or have issues with what you bought. So procurement tends to look at conditions and considerations before the buying takes place. Conforms with all applicable laws and regulations. With all prospective suppliers and their representatives fairly and impartially. reduce procurement process costs, and ensure continuous improvement, adheres to organizational policies. Now, when the organization has policies, all kinds of policies, quality, diversity, and all the other workforce policies, sustainability policy, energy policy, and the rest. All of those policies, procurement helps to translate them into action. So when we're not doing our day-to-day activities, how do we implement what we have in our policy? Procurement is undertaken in accordance with high professional standards and ethics, and this is very important. Procurement and facility management are in a very delicate situation in the organization. We are always buying, and with all that buying, there's tendency for opportunity for graft and corruption. When we have procurement in place, procurement aims to ensure that there is professional standards and ethics embedded in the process. Organize an effective, structured way and is embedded in the organization. Develop management information on the use of professional measures for procurement. So in essence, procurement actually helps you to follow through management decisions by developing data sets that account for how we spend money, how we acquire services and goods. So that if you're going to make decisions about future acquisitions and future purchases, it is from the data that is acquired from procurement, you can make that, do that analysis and best judgment. Getting the right product at the right time at the right price is what procurement goal is for money. Now, value for money is different from best value, okay? Value for money is different from best value. Value for money is defined as getting the right product at the right time at the right price, okay? When that right price is the lowest price, it becomes okay. When that right price is the lowest price, it becomes best. So when it comes to procurement, what the FM thinks about most commonly is what I would call the end products, not necessarily what you are looking for. If you see a facility manager looking for generators up and down, or going to browse different options of air conditioning, does he really need a generator, or is it power that he needs? The answer, of course, is power. Generator is not what he needs. Generator is only a means to the end, right? And that end is just power to operate and run your facility. So if we start from that end point in every procurement thinking, our options will open up. We'll be able to look at as many alternatives as possible because we are looking far and wide, because we're starting from what we really want. I don't want an air conditioner. I want comfortable ambient indoor air quality or air control, right? So what are the options? But by focusing on exactly what I want, then my options opens up. Unlike if I'm focusing on what is available or what is being sold. If you start from the supply side, instead of focusing on the demand side, which is what you want to get for your occupants or for your users, then we will not be making proper decisions regarding procurement. Because these days, in recent times past, we used to have, should you acquire your own assets or should you leave someone else's assets to use? We even have a third option today, the utility as a service option, where we can actually go past buying a gen of I'm not buying a gen, lease a generator of I'm not leasing a generator. You that have your own generator, put it on, service it, maintain it, do operate it, and just connect me with power. Go and build an office. Scrap up. I don't need to build an office. go and rent an office. Start off. I don't need to rent an office. I want office spaces that I can use on a pay-as-you-go basis. If I have 100 workers, give them 100 seats, comfortable spaces at your rate. I'll pay you for them working on that day. So that's everything as a service has come to become the third option, you know, of this purchase versus lease arguments. Now, why the argument for purchasing, acquiring your own asset is that it provides more flexibility. For landed property, it will increase in value, so it may become a good, basis for financial stability in your balance sheet. All right, and then own property life cycle costs are generally less than leasing. What it simply means is that because you own the property, you have longer life to divide all those costs through. So your life cycle costs will be less than when you lease it, and your time with that property is shorter. But on the flip side, leasing will give you the release of your capital. You know, the analysis I made earlier on about how much can we make as a business from this money instead of tying it down. So why should I buy when I can lease for the period and use my money for my investment, right? It offers agility. Agility simply means that I can scale up, scale down. I'm using 2 sites, and the contractor supplying me generators on the 2 sites. I have a new project, and I need a big generator, massive one in that new project. I don't have to worry about buying the gen. My contractor finds his own money, gets the gen installed for me in the new site. And if that site works for 3 months and I say, look, we are done, you can take your generator back. I can be that agile because the assets are not mine and leasing. This provides entry into state-of-the-art facility. And this is another good thing about leasing. Because the contractors that provide leased assets to organizations, they are always experts in that industry. They always know the latest equipment. Every time they will be buying more equipment, they'll be buying the latest equipment. If you were to buy, for example, those mechanical lifts for carrying workmen up to heights of 8 meters, 10 meters, 20 meters, 40 meters, even in some cases, for facade cleaning, for street lights, maintenance, and the rest. If you bought one for your organization at the cost of 5 million 5 years ago, the rest are shown that the organization will expect to use it for 20 years. Even if newer models, matter technology start coming out, you will still be stuck with your own old jalopy man lift because you bought it and you own it. But if you lease it on an ongoing basis, every time you need, you lease. The people who lease to you will not go to the market and buy an old type whenever they're replacing their equipment. So there's a likelihood of you having access to the latest equipment to lease. And leasing provides the ability to negotiate terms. And it is also very important because your money is in your pockets. You are now the one dishing it out according to how you want it. So you can negotiate, you have power at that point. And again, just a quick review of this decision to lead the purchase. You know, this was a very strong aspect of our financial management class as well. Cost of alternative, cash position, and tax position, prepared property type, portfolio type for the organization, whether it's leased or owned. Term of use, also very important. You really don't want to go and acquire assets when the term of use is very short. And the asset risk management factors, there are certain risks that are associated with owning certain assets. But this is the third party that owns it, they're the one that has that risk. And then the need for flexibility. Will I need to scale up, scale down, change what I'm doing change my mind about what I want, and so on and so forth. That is made possible because whatever considerations I need to make before I make a decision on whether I'm going to lease or going to buy needs to come out of the plea and more. Benefits of in-house service provision, the lease versus buy analysis is more for goods, right? But when it comes to services, we also are faced with question. Should we just get our own staff, employ them, and give them the work to do directly as in-house staff? Or should we get a company that has work we want on, go for specific comfortability between clients and contractor labor flow, because that normally happens when the staff primarily committed or loyal to whoever pays their salaries. They say whoever pays the piper dictates the tune, right? So if you are a contractor employee, your loyalty is to your contractor, to the owner of the company, not to the clients primarily. It's only secondarily that your loyalty is now to the client. So if you want to have that loyalty and reduce tendency for conflict of loyalty, then you want to engage your own staff and not have a third party. But there are limitations to in-house service provision, including management being unlikely to be knowledgeable. You don't expect a bank manager to know how to appraise an FM and know how to decide on what the FM's tools and what the FM will need to do well on its job. They won't even know. In fact, many HR departments in most organizations don't even know what to send FMs to for training. They just ignore them, because they know where their accountants go, they know where the operations teams go, they know where engineers go, they know, different people, secretaries and all, they have different trades, but people don't tend to have competence or capability on understanding what the FMs do. Even your kind of reports, if you don't develop a creative report that management, exactly how management wants to should be seeing your work, for example, management should not go and write down a report template for you. They'll just be in the areas that bother them, like how you spend money. Specialist training is unlikely to be available. The work will be carried out when core business management provision is not on site. And much of our FM work, especially the project work, have to be done when people like off-peak time people are out of work, right? So management does not even have the time to pay attention to FM work. Recruitment and absence cover can be a major problem. I have in one of my sites 2 security guys. One works day, one works night. So I pay the security company for day and night guarding, right, to guard that site. Now, the company is most likely unable to use same 2 people on a perpetual basis. There has to be a third person that they use to rotate. Maybe when the guy is going on leave or is going on off or some other arrangements, right? Somebody else is there to step in. If I employ them myself directly, I won't have that flexibility. I won't be able to have someone employed or not employed that kept on the side and say, whenever I need you, you come and work. No, that will not work for me. But whereas if I'm a contractor, of course, I'll be able to run that easily. And then additional costs with the things like hidden costs are also involved. When you employ somebody into your organization, you should realize that it's not just salaries that you're giving the person. You're giving the person a lot more that is beyond what you pay to them. We call these items hidden costs that you cannot easily quantify, right? If I employ people, I'll provide certain perks, I'll provide certain quality of life for them, right? This cost I cannot estimate. That's why they are called hidden costs. But if I have a contractor coming to do the work for me, I'm not obliged to provide them lunch and comfortable this and comfortable that, which I will do for my own staff because of my own policy. and these things will definitely cost money. So more reasons for outsourcing, reduce headcount. So organizations are actually very wary of having a large headcount. We don't want too many people on our payroll. It's a problem. Reduce costs, concentrate on the core business, which is what people keep talking about is concentrate on the core business. That's the reason you were set up in the first place. Focus on it, let other people do your support function. So you buy in the provider's core business. Service providers in FM are actually having this as their core business. So by paying for it, you are pulling their own expertise, you are pulling their own core into your own business. And then flexibility, agility, things to also consider here. FM staff will have a chance now, an FM company, to grow to become entity. But FM staff in an insurance company or a medical establishment or an airport does not have that chance. At some point, your career will plateau. Manager, general manager, or maybe in some rare cases, director, right? But if you're in an FM company, yes, you'll be able to have improved career opportunities. And then the internal staff that are supposed to supervise FM company staff, they learn a lot. They see all this report for the FM company, we submit to them, and they're learning from there. So it's also a way of training your in-house staff when you're outsourced. And then, of course, as a management, you can focus on strategic issues and planning instead of being bogged down with all the little things that come lagging on a daily basis. And then, like I said, using the mechanical lift example, I don't have to own it, I don't have to buy it, right? So that capital is preserved. Let contractor bring it so that I can use it. I'm paying for 1 week and you'll be happy, right? So that's how it works. I want to take a little break, 5 minutes, and they'll be right back. Okay. All right, where's everybody?
Very, very much around, sir.
Very much around, right? Okay, great. I just looked at the numbers and I was thinking maybe it's because of the break, 5 people dropped off. Maybe that happened because of network, because when people are dropping off because of network issues, I think.
Yes, that is my case, sir. The network was so bad. In fact, I lost out for like 5 minutes.
Don't worry, don't worry. Yeah. You have all the videos and you will to recover all that minutes that were lost, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's look at the whole outsourcing thing. Just yesterday, a very reputable organization sent me what they call an RFP for facility management. And I read through the whole RFP, request for proposal, by the way, that's what the RFP means. And it's telling me I should send them technical and commercial proposal, which means I should develop the cost of running their facilities for them. I read through it, and this is about the third time in 1 week between last Monday and yesterday that I've received such request. One very large organization that has like 4 companies and have several locations across Lagos and Ogun State is looking for an FM company to come and manage for them. And there's no collation of data of what they want. They don't have a write-up of what their facilities objectives are. They don't have, other than we have this site, that's the address, that site, that's the address. There's no other information about what those sites contain. For example, the square meters, the built-up area, the kind of assets in terms of asset register that the sites have, key issues, the kind of work going on in those areas. They just didn't have that information. And so I wrote back to them just like I did for this other one yesterday and said, I would love to respond to your RFP, but this and this and this and this information are lacking. Can we create a means of getting those information first before I start working on proposals? And so what I've seen happening over the years, and why I need to teach you this, is that the organizations don't know how. I don't blame them for that. They don't know how to come up with an asset register, describe their services, come up with the objectives of those services. They don't know how. That's understandable, right? But if they don't know how and they don't have the in-house capacity, they're supposed to get consultants. They're supposed to get consultants first, who will help them understand their facilities, who will help them look at their data, analyze them, and piece together the data that is needed by bidders to be able to come for any kind of bidding for their work. But if they throw it out to the public the way they are currently doing left, right, and center, what happens is that they will get one proposal that is guava, the next one is orange, the next one is coconut, the next one is mango, right? And they will not be able to compare those proposals. So that's one. So to have a genuine procurement that is fair and impartial will be impossible, just because you didn't give information. Each person has to make up his own information. In fact, there was one major bid I did for a multinational organization just recently. You know that everything up to numbers of cleaners requirements, everything was looking in those bids. Everybody made up their numbers. When they went for 2 months and they could not compare, you know what they did? They wrote all of us again and say, we're going to redo the bid. For this location, we want this number. So why did you provide that information from the onset? Instead of getting everybody worked up you know, and then at the end of the day, ending up not being able to compare and validate. So procurement people that are not learning facility management and trying to build out facility management work should depend on their facility management team in-house to put together the documentation. But in many cases, they are either hiding the information that they want to outsource because they believe the FM team will not be happy that they want to outsource, or other motives are behind their coming out with such incompetence. So what I'm teaching today is that you as facility managers should be able to have basic information, data. You are outsourcing your services, even if you're not outsourcing everything in one long project, one long contract, but you want to outsource a piece of work like plumbing or electrical or whatever. You must do some groundwork. What are the objectives and key attributes of the services I'm looking for? What is currently on ground? What are the key stakeholders? And then document the scope of the work, the specification of the work, the area covered, equipment involved. And then if there's any unique demand, indicate it. Not when people are already on site and say, no, sorry, this place, this site, nobody works there on Friday. There's something that happens there every Friday. That information should be packaged into the documentation from the onset. High priority area, risk assessment areas. For example, very funny. If you work in a medical facility or a laboratory facility, the hygiene requirements are often very, very high. The possibility or the likelihood of cross-contamination and very serious disease outbreak can be very high, right? So because of that, there are certain risk factors that need to be already be analyzed by the organization, that need to be added as information to vendors who are going to bid for your job. Because somebody will just bid one lousy bid of, I'll do your clinic for 500,000 a month, and you're happy, yay, it's cheap. Let's give him the job. Before he now comes in and realizes that even the kind of napkins and dusters he uses for cleaning, he cannot use them there. What happens? Okay, a lot of things come in, configuration of management implications, all kinds of considerations like qualifications, internal management structure. If you come in as a contractor, for example, who will you be reporting to? How will your company and your team relate with our correct organogram? And then bid evaluation criteria, soft and hard measures and comparison of all costs, not just lowest price. The whole idea here is that you need to let the information on how you're going to evaluate a bid be prepared in advance. So there's a lot that needs to be done. This is just a small, like a nutshell of what you need to have in place before you can say you're outsourcing. Even if it's cleaning, even if it's something like generator maintenance, you must do the groundwork and have the proper documentation. I've seen people asking people to come and do maintenance proposal for generator maintenance, and they will just tell you, we have 2 big generators. Give us a quotation on how you want to manage generators. The age and condition of those generators will be silent. When they finish receiving quotation, every week the generator starts packing. The FM company does not know what they are doing. So it's you as the client that needs to put everything in place. Procurement goes through a process. It starts with identifying the need, which is usually from 2 or 3 opportunities for need identification. One, from your strategic planning, many needs would have been picked up that will be solved by tactical activities. Problems can emanate from occupants or building users' use of facilities, and you will need to, respond by procuring goods or services. and so on. So it could be planned or unplanned. Either way, a need has arisen and the procurement needs to take place. Now, that needs to be identified by management, to be identified by users, to be identified by the FMM's proactive maintenance of operations plans or programs. That need goes into a request preparation stage where the FM looks at that need, defines the need or the problem, defines the solution or the specification of what it's looking for, right? Adds information as to who can do it, that would be pre-qualification. Adds information as to evaluation criteria. So there are 4 aspects to preparing a request. One is to use objective metrics to describe the need. This is a cleaning job, right? And the cleaning job is to remove all debts and blah, blah, blah. This is what we expect. Why we are trying to get this cleaning job is to ensure that this area does not have smell and so on and so forth. I'm preparing the request. Then I'll develop the specification of the work, which includes my scope of work and specifications. Those 2 aspects form that second piece. This is where I will decide whether I'm going to do output or input. We'll talk about that in a bit. Approach to specification of the scope of work and the specification of the job. And then once I've indicated that, I will not describe what I want. If I'm doing input based, for example, I'm telling the contractor, you must bring so number of workers, you must bring so materials, you must do so at so time. I'm telling you what to do. I'm being directional in my scope specification. But if I'm trying to be output focused, I will not start analyzing what I want. Every table that I have must not have any dust. Every floor that I have must not have any stain. My glass windows must be stainless and must be clean and so on and so forth. That's what I'm doing for output. Whatever I'm doing in that area, I'm just trying to ensure that I can describe the solution. So step 1, describe the problem. Step 2, describe the solution. Step 3, describe who can do it. This is called pre-qualification criteria. Step 4, describe how you are going to evaluate or compare the bids, which is called evaluation criteria. If you do these 4 things, you have finished your procurement. By the time you submit it to procurement departments, they have all the information they need. In fact, everything you have given them just like checklist for them. There's very little input other than review the request, see it complete, confirm with you that's what you want. They draft a contract following up a corporate policy, and then they add some of those boilerplate policies into the contract. They're just basically taking what you have given them and fitting it into what we call an RFP or RFQ or ITT, whatever they're going to prepare to give out. And that document also includes what the final contract will look like in a draft format. By the time they get to the market to look for bidders, solicit the bid, evaluate the bid, even if they evaluate the bid, I don't come back to you, the FM, you've done all the work. They'll basically use what you gave them to mark and score, and then they will award the contract. So there's no chance that if the FM who identifies the need with management and the building users can properly prepare it in form of a request that includes the description of the problem or the need, the description of the solution or the scope of work, the pre-qualification and the evaluation criteria, then procurement will just sail through smoothly. There's no chance or very little chance that procurement will deliver something to you that will not meet the requirement because you have spelled out the requirement. Again, if your corporate culture is right, if you spell out a requirement to this level of detail and they bring something that does not meet it, for goodness sake, it is not you or them, it's not the process that will not be used. Tick. No, this doesn't qualify. Get it out of here, we're not buying this. Then they will revise themselves and start afresh. Part of that pre-qualification exercise, the one I talked about, being able to put down certain criteria for evaluating contractors to decide who can work for you. This has led us to develop a list of vendors. These are the only ones we work with in this area. These are the only ones we work with in that area. At the end of the day, it has its own benefits that you can have a trusted set of vendors that you don't have to rescreen every time you have a job. Procurement can be easy, just pick from the pool. If you don't manage this process very well, especially not allowing the vendors to get to know themselves, not making them too few so you can have enough options in the market, then yes, this is the best way to go. Okay, pre-qualifying and continuously pre-qualifying is the best approach to go when it comes to having vendors available to do your work. And then after you've shortlisted, of course, you give the qualified vendors the invitation to tender, which could be an ITC or an RFQ. ITC is invitation to tender, and RFQ is requisition to quotes, a request for quotes, and RFP is a request for proposal. When the bids are in and you want to evaluate the bid, of course, you could choose any of these three options. The lowest responsive bid is straightforward, it's based on the lowest bidder that meets the specified requirements. So you must have been detailed enough to use this one. Once you have detailed enough, and only those who make the cut, they qualify to be there. They are the only ones that are going to be there. So they are all good, right? It's typically used for the others within and well-defined requirements. And then you have the evaluated best value for money. This is based on evaluation of technical criteria as well as the final bid. So this is when you have both commercial and technical together. In the lowest responsive bid approach, you've done technical before. All those who qualified were in the pool, and you bidded commercial to them, right? So you pick the lowest bidder. But in the evaluated best value for money bid approach, you do a specialized technical pre-qualification again. So if you have civil contractors, for example, they all can build you, all of them can repaint your building, right? But you want to find out from the list of those who can repaint your building, maybe you want to say, okay, how many of you have painted a high-rise more than 5 stories in the last 3 years? You are pulling a smaller group out of your large group of vendors, right? And then by the time you now give them an RFP, for example, I want to paint this my high-rise building. Give me your proposal. And then I want technical criteria like how you execute the work, your safe work method, for example. I want to see your permit to work system. I want to see your chemical handling procedures and so on and so forth. Then bring your bid as well. Now, when I now see the two, I will now use a bid evaluation criteria that says I will score points for who understands my building very well, who has the best plan to execute it with the least risk, for example. I will score for those ones. Then I will also score for costs that he has put in his commercial aspect. So with this evaluation, I may not end up choosing the one that is the lowest bidder, because the lowest bidder may not have the least amount of risk, compared to another one that is, for example, somebody is trying to use a mechanical lifting system, was going to rent a cradle and set up a cradle in the high rise and bring people down in a very organized, safe mechanical device doing the painting, compared to another one that is probably going to just use bamboo scaffolds, for example. I know that there's a high risk of collapse on this bamboo scaffold, and if that is the best you can do, even if it's the cheapest, I don't want to take such risk, right? And then there's this unique service, which is the final price being negotiated after the selection. This is basically what we use for all of these OEM reps, or original equipment manufacturers. When you say I'm not representing Carrier, I'm not representing FG Wilson in Nigeria, for example. So everybody must come and buy that engine from me. In a way, they have created some kind of pseudo or semi-monopoly, which means that the options you have to bid to are not many. Take elevators, for example. By the time you pick out 1, 2, 3, 4 companies, all elevators are basically warehoused by these 4 companies. So by the time you install your own elevator, you are either going to work with 1 company or 2 people. You just can't go ahead and negotiate because they have the unique service advantage. That's about procurement. Since we define procurement as a systematic process for arriving at a contract or an agreement, which will lead to purchasing, we need to talk about contracts in this class. A contract is a tool that defines the kinds of relationships and interactions involved in the procurement of goods or services, right? It helps to ensure regulatory compliance, operational risk management, and effective change control. A contract is valid if there is mutual agreement, which means minds are met, whether express or implied. Express or implied have implication. Express means it's been written down and signed. But implied means that by the way people behave to each other, an agreement has been reached. Okay, so a simple case in point in our society is when you have a woman moving to live with a man and have 1 baby and have the next baby and have the next baby, and they cook food and they eat together and they go to church together and service together. And then now we come tomorrow and say, oh, they are not married. Oh. The man will say, leave my house. Your visit is so you have overstayed your visit. That's a lie. By your behavior of allowing her come and live in, and you started getting her pregnant and having babies for you, you have implied a marriage agreement, and that is acceptable. There's a mutual agreement. That's what happens. If somebody comes to start providing services to you in your organization today, and you didn't offer the person offer letter, but you open the door, the person resumes, works with your team, holds meetings, does at the end of the month, pay me, you say, oh, where's your offer letter, for example? That's actually a lie. There's already an agreement. Consideration, the exchange of something of value, quid pro quo, competent parties, whoever signs must have legal authority and capacity. There are 2 angles to this valid contract element consideration. If somebody signs a contract, the person must have legal authority. You must be able to prove that you represent the person whose contract that is. So if I sign on behalf of my company as a CEO, it is valid. But if my cleaner signs on behalf of my company, it's a questionable legal authority. Who gave him that authority? He has to prove it that he actually got the authority to sign on my behalf, on behalf of the company, right? And then capacity also has to do with mental state when contracts are being signed. A minor does not have capacity. Somebody with mental impairment does not have capacity. Even when it is just a slight intoxication of alcohol has impaired the person's mental state. So if you are talking business and trying to sign an agreement and you go and you start being careless around bottles of beer on the table, you be rest assured that you may be dealing with invalidation of that contract in the future. If there's a photograph that captures the person who signed with a bottle of beer around him, and the data comes around to say, oh, that agreement is not valid because I was intoxicated. That agreement will be resolved by any law court. Subject matter must also be proper. Every contract must have a lawful purpose. There cannot be a contract for things that are illegal. For example, 2 thieves cannot sign a valid contract without having to share their loot. Their stealing is illegal. So the contract they sign is no longer a contract. Whatever they sign or write will not become a contract because it's not an unlawful purpose. There must also be mutual right to remedy. Both parties must have an equal right to remedy a breach of the terms of the contract by the other party. And then there must have been an agreement to enter into a contract. This is also very significant. When parties must demonstrate that negotiations have ended and an agreement has been reached when the contract is signed. If you are negotiating and you are not explicit about the fact that you are still negotiating. If one person performs the requirements of that agreement that in your mind has not been reached, and that person's mind has been reached, then you are obliged to accept, because by implication, there was no specific way to demonstrate that negotiations have not ended. If one party can prove that the negotiation has not ended, the contract is not valid, right? So that's the whole way to look at this particular last item. Let's look at FM contracts. So we talk about contracts generally. That's why I talked about marriage. I talk about people coming to clean your office and work for you and so on and so forth. Project management contracts will typically fall into one of these categories. The fixed price is typically a contract where the terms of the contract is defined, specifications and scope is clearly outlined, the rates are all agreed. It's understood what needs to be done. It's understood that there will be no variation, or variation control is also in the contract, how to control variation. Now, in the fixed price contract, there's a lot that is already known. That's why it is like that. So most of the RFQs, request for quotation, for example, where you have a list of items, specification is listed, and you have to quote for it, would normally be a fixed price contract. The cost reimbursement contract is used for contracts that you cannot fully estimate all of the scope items. For example, you are doing a filling on one of these swamplands in Shango, for example, and you estimate that 200 trips of 4-ton trucks of shotgun will do your filling to the level you want, and then you fill the contract in place. And what happens if it is not enough, or while the work is ongoing, you now discover that you now needed to excavate a tree trunk that if it's not excavated, it will rot to decay later, and that area will cave in, right? So use a cost reimbursement approach for this, so that you can keep having negotiations or agreements and going on with the contract as you're working with clients with contractors. This, number 3, indefinite delivery quantity line item contract is a contract type used mainly for maintenance, where you want to maintain AC or electrical, for example, and you now have what we call a schedule of rates for materials. So you have all the various materials that can go into this particular service and the labor that goes with each of it on a line item basis. That's why it's called indefinite delivery quantity line item. Your contract is not based on anything other than a ceiling and a rate, a set of rates. Every time there's a need to deliver on that contract, you issue a work order, the contractor comes to perform and invoices you based on the agreed rate. Once it does that and attaches his way bill of job completion certificate, that becomes a tool for paying him what has been agreed. In essence, you use that schedule of rates to accumulate work for an ongoing basis. So what you probably have is a budgetary controlled ceiling. So this is the ceiling for this contract. It's a 20 million contract, a 30 million contract. Doesn't mean that you are owing the contractor that 20 or 30 million. It means that as I give you work on an ongoing basis, based on this rate, we will not have to negotiate on the way. The rates have been agreed, I pay you based on the volume of work that you do. That is very different from the cost reimbursement, because the cost reimbursement simply means that you'll be getting quotes all the time and you'll be negotiating and agreeing those quotes and approving for work to be done. So the IDQLI kind of simplifies maintenance contracts so that you already have rates locked in. There's no need for negotiation. If I ask for you to bring me compressors and what do you call them, capacitors or whatever, you bring them as I wanted because the rates are already there. You sign for it and does it. Now, the national buy is just talking about the geographic spread of contract administration. I can administer one contract in one location to provide services across a wide geographic spread. A controller can be doing, you know, a maintenance activity across all the locations and bringing all his invoice to one point. That's what the national buy contract is. And then the open book is not cost reimbursement, but similar to cost reimbursement. It's open book because you are basically spending and retiring to the client at the direct cost. So for most of the contracts that I have that I'm doing open book, for example, I invoice the client directly from the vendor. So I only get an agreed management fee for negotiating and managing that interface. I don't get to be paid directly as, oh, this is the work you have done, how much you'll be paid for this work, right? I'm doing it at market price. Then you give me my markup. That's how open book works. And it can be used for any kind of contract as well. And then the final one, labor hour, time, and materials. It's a contract type that mostly used for buying skilled labor, consultancy, and the rest, which is basically this is how many hours work should take, this is how much per hour you charge. If you do transportation or you do materials acquisition or you do printing, we'll pay those ones extra. Let's look at contract negotiation guidelines. Know when you need a signed piece of paper and when you don't. Know what you're worth before negotiation starts. If you accept a job because you are too afraid to demand the real value of the job, and your intention is to use shortcuts, cut corners on the job, you can cause a lot of complications for yourself. Okay, so know what you are worth. Research the client before you begin negotiating with them. Know the kind of people you are negotiating with. Not all clients are what the way you think with them from outside. So I find out, you know, what's been going on. Some clients have actually run some businesses out of business, right? So don't jump at such clients and say the opportunity that have come. You can negotiate more than money. This is very important. Negotiating everything else before you negotiate money is actually key. So negotiation. And be reasonable. Your goal is not to run companies out of business, right? It's important to, you know, to know that every company is there to make a profit and not to find a way to always profit. Listen to the potential client needs. This is also very important. Especially when you are negotiating from the point of view of the service provider. The client might say, I want this. I want a modem. Go and get me an internet modem, right? But the client is actually saying, I need internet, I need data to work with. And I know that there are some USB dongles and sticks, and I know that there are some Wi-Fi routers, and I know that there are some fiber optic cables that are cheaper, that will provide more bandwidth to this client. But if I don't listen to understand some of those things that will help me fully grasp what the client is trying to get to like the root source or the root point of what the client is looking for, I might end up dragging issues about modem, giving them what is within the budget they can afford, only to find out that you know, it didn't start their purpose and they're not happy with me, right? So listen to potential client needs, communicate with care and guard their emotions. Negotiation is not a win-lose, it's a win-win. Always find that win-win opportunity. Don't be afraid to negotiate and don't rush it. It's not about winning or losing. So it's important that contracts it's important in contracts to include a provision that any changes made to a contract are ineffective unless made in writing and signed by on behalf of other parties. For this consideration, people can step into a contract at a small amount. The terms are similarly understood by both parties, but when they start implementing, changes can creeping gradually that can lead to a ballooning of that contract, right? If there are no change control mechanisms, which include scrutiny and signatures to documents, someone can just, you know, go out of hand and commit you to things you didn't expect. Okay, so duration clause is very important. Once the contract is in place, you need to monitor the contract. Communication and reporting. Now, monitoring, communication, and reporting are key to contract management. We don't advise you to start creating more complex monitoring, communication, and reporting tools after the contract has been implemented. Let those monitoring, communication, and reporting tools be discussed and possibly embedded into the contract. So the contractors know that you come weekly. For example, for a meeting, they know that you will demand a certain reports that will come daily in this format. That forms the basis for their estimation for their quoting in the first place. But if you leave all that out and say, oh, we are supposed to maintain quality, we are supposed to ensure this is done, and start bringing morning evening meeting, every day, morning evening meeting, report, hourly reports, start bringing complex things, even deploy a new software, say, completely must use this software to, by the time you get to that point, it will lead to conflict. So it's good to monitor reports and have regular communication, mainly because you don't want people to fail. A contractor that fails, it's not just him that fails, it's you that lose if you're paying for that service, okay? So it's important to also think about how to administer the contract, how to have funding to pay for the contract, so that you don't tell them we'll pay you in 2 weeks after you submit your invoice, and then 2 weeks after you submit your invoice, you are still trying to get certain approvals that have not come, or money is not available in finance, and so on and so forth. It's important to have that discussion. Always have that discussion, so that you don't get a contractor waiting and getting demotivated and getting infuriated eventually, and unable to deliver the work that they should deliver. Ensure invoices are paid and define low spending levels and reassignment of funds. So of course, if you are monitoring your contract, it's just as good as monitoring your budget, because everything you put a contract in place is tied to a budget. And as you are paying that contract off, you are paying from that budget. And you see how the budget is performing in various line items. Ensure that vendor payments are commensurate to the level of goods or service received. It is also very critical. You know, all those looking at the job and saying the job is 60% done, let's pay 60%. Sometimes negligence is involved, sometimes criminality is involved. It's important to ensure that vendors are not paid past the value they have produced. They already paid below the value they have produced, deliberately to keep them, working for their money, not that they are overpaid and they cannot begin to hold it to ransom. Okay, and then again, your vendor invoice management is supposed to be strictly adhered to according to the policies your organization have in place. There was a case in point where an FN lost his job because a vendor submitted an invoice. He held on to that invoice for more than 3 weeks before turning it in. By the time he got to account and it was the stamp 3 weeks after he received it from the vendor. And that was really, really criminal, because it affects a lot of things. Apart from the fact that the vendor got angry, embarrassed the organization, it also affects the organization's profit and loss management system, where they are trying to calculate which period certain expenses were incurred, right? That actual system, that integrity needs to be maintained, because at that point, when you hold it for that long and you dump it in, now statistics that was done this period, not that period, thereby creating a manipulation of the system. Contractor will perform, do their job, and it will be your responsibility to evaluate whether they have done well, or whether they have whether they can be used for future jobs, whether you can give them more awards of the same job, like renewing their contract, and so on and so forth. That evaluation system should help you determine the quality and quantity of work that you are receiving. That form should not be a template that only you. I see most organizations do this, and it's actually a bad practice, where the organization's team will sit down and do the evaluation in the absence of the contractor team. Just the same way appraisal is done between supervisors and their subordinates, that's how this evaluation is supposed to be done, so that there's a feedback approach back and forth. Now, the only exception to that is if you had reporting that has been done regularly, signed off by both parties. So you're now referring to those reporting to create a performance appraisal for the contractor. Before performance measurement can be put in place, output specification must be established. If you don't understand what you want as a client, nothing the contractor does will be satisfied, right? And if you understand what you want and you not document it, so that the contractor can fully understand exactly what you want and how much priority you place on each of those line items, then you will end up having issues when you appraise the contractor wrongly and the contractor is not happy with you. So how to specify input or output? Input specification, this is talking about the scoping of your work. When you as a client, you're trying to get a contractor to come and work for you, do you set out in clear detail all the services performed and how they should perform it, what they should be used to perform it? That input specification. Or do you set out only how the performance standards you expect? What is the expected outcome to your organization or to you? Builder can now decide how he will implement it. Take cleaning, for example. Someone can decide to use a robot to clean your office. You need a clean environment, right? But someone can decide to use 5 old ladies to clean your office. You still need a clean environment. That's what you want when you're doing outputs. But if you are doing inputs, you will specify the 5 old ladies or the robot as the way to clean. And once somebody has used your input approach to clean or do your job, you cannot again tell the person he has not done his job. He has done what you asked him to do. Okay. Most of the contracts we manage in FMs will not be for buying goods. We do a lot of buying of goods, but service contracts are even more difficult to manage. Performance of services and labor-oriented activities are difficult to specify. So that's why you need to be able to document and give clarity, provide more details on the levels of service that you require. For example, I can be looking at a cleaning specification, for example, and all I see there is make sure the tiles are washed clean, make sure the glass are clean, make sure the ceiling don't have cobwebs. I'm creating a standard at that level. I say this is the standard of what I expect. So whenever I do inspection, if I see cobwebs in the ceiling, I will note it and say this contractor does not fulfill the service level for ceiling cleaning. If I see marks of stains on glass, I will mark it and I will note it and say this contractor does not fulfill the requirement for glass cleaning. I'll have to do that for every aspect of breaking down the scope of work. So that I'm not only saying clean, I'm also saying this surface is clean to this level for me to be satisfied. That's what defining a service certification is. And that service certification and the scope of service, they go together into the service level agreement. Okay, the part of your service contract where the level of service is formally defined. The negotiated agreement between the service provider, whether in-house or outsourced, and the customer. And it's important to understand this. Service level agreement is not just something you sign with a contractor or a third-party vendor. It's something you sign with your building users. When you have employee manual, for example, or your workplace procedures, you discuss and negotiate with your building users, and you establish certain expectations. Things that you must provide for them are indicated, right? How they want to work, the kind of spaces they like, the kind of services they want. You specify all that and agree those with your building users and management. It is based on those you will now go and create contracts with contractors. You now put service level agreement with the contractor. That service level agreement is supposed to be an interpretation of the SLA between you and your organization. Okay? The third level document should state the objective of the service, describe in detail the service deliverables, which is the scope, define performance standards and customer expectations. These are all called specifications. Provide an ongoing reporting mechanism. I told you the reporting mechanism must be built into it. The penalty and incentive should be together. Provide mechanism for penalties and incentive, right? And then for change management built into the SLA. Every time you see an SLA document and does not include this configuration, that document is incomplete. Contracts sometimes would, because like I said before, contracts are opportunities to spend money, right? And whenever money is being spent, there's a tendency that fraud might be committed. So as facility managers, it's our job to understand how contract fraud occurs and put measures in place to mitigate their impacts, just to stay on the straight and narrow. It's not enough to not have your hands in the cookie jar. You must have processes in place to protect not just yourself, but protect others around the procurement process. Especially some of those collusion that takes place between an internal and an external person, a contractor getting information shouldn't have gotten unfair information, or vendors knowing themselves enough to be able to meet and fix prices, and then not safe pricing when somebody is putting prices that are not consistent. For example, you bid the amount this time so that someone else can win. You bid a different amount next time so that you can win. And then during execution, a lot of irregularities also happen during execution. People manipulate a contract to enter low, and then during execution, all kinds of variations will crop up to create opportunities for more money to be paid out. Companies will lose every time there is contract fraud. Any illegal act of deceit and concealment to obtain money, property, or services are all part of contracts and fraud. And the companies that pay the money are the ones losing. There's no fraud that somebody is not losing. And that's why we should avoid it. How can you mitigate fraud? Segregate duties. The person who decides that something is needed is not also the one that will decide who will bring it. It's not always the one that will take away the scrap, right? Segregate duties. The person that brings the vendors to come and bid should not be the one to select which one among them to do the job. Company should not stay too long in a position where there's too much temptation. Let there be job empowerment by using job rotation, and then proper authorization. Let there be layers of approvals required for different types of amounts. If it goes beyond this, it's the manager. If it goes to that level, it's the GM and the board of the procurement committee, and then to the board of directors and so on and so forth. And then competitive bidding and tendering. An open, transparent process will eliminate all forms of fraud. Then documentation and record keeping. Every transaction, every correspondence, every approval must be well documented and kept. And every contract should have a change order control system. Don't leave change order out only to now use guesswork to process change orders during the execution. And then budgetary controls. Budgetary controls is a tool to control how, especially when you have a 10 million budget and you have a 10 million contract, right? And then because the budget is strict, you can't do anything about the budget, you can't do much about the budget, you are more constrained to ensure that the contract delivers on its objectives within that contract amount. So the opportunity for corrupt practices to be reduced as well. Contracts often go through the process of carefully defining all expectations to ensure that there's no ambiguity, there's no confusion. That's the key to avoiding conflict. Make sure that there's proper documentation, there's full understanding, and signatures are assigned to the right area. People understand themselves. But even during execution, when you don't have, when you don't have proper execution control mechanism, there could also be conflict. There could be misinterpretation of certain aspects of the contract. It could just be a semantic issue where words are meaning different things to different people, right? There will be conflicts in some contracts. When you have a conflict, instead of going straight to the courts, have what we call the alternate dispute resolution techniques or mechanism built into your contract, ADR. The first and most common one is management escalation, where you have management on both sides meeting. MD can meet to discuss what's causing issues on the shop floor. Mediation is a method in which the parties reach a voluntary settlement with the help of a skilled facilitator. Usually, a skilled facilitator, consultant, mediator in the industry who is very knowledgeable about the issues that they are bringing can pass the judgment if they both agree and sign up to him looking into their matter. And then you have arbitration. Arbitration is like a court, but it's not exactly a court. It's a quasi-legal approach where one person can submit a dispute, both of them agree to use arbitration. They don't use it's an out-of-court discussion, but it's run by arbitrators who are legally certified to provide these proceedings. And then their judgments is often documented. If people are not satisfied after arbitration and they go to court, most likely the judge will ask to see the analysis that the arbitrators have used, and in many cases adopt it as a judgment, so you wasted your time. Every contract must be closed out. This is something that many firms are really not paying attention to. A contract may end its tenure. Oh, it's expiring in December. December came, contract expired. A contract can run out its ceiling. For example, a contract may not have budget again, especially the IDQLI type contracts where the ceiling has been exhausted. So you cannot order on that contract again, right? But that contract will still remain open. And that's why you must have a contract closure documentation. It's actually a checklist that has, things like have we met all the obligation? Has all the payments been done? Have all the disputes been resolved? Is there anything that, just different configuration that you need to put into a small checklist? Both parties will sign. And this contract can hereby be closed. Because something can happen again later, and the vendor will come up and say, because I was hoping for a renewal or for an extension of my contract, I accepted to do so and so things that were not in my contract. I wasn't paid for it, only to be disappointed, and they didn't give me a new contract. I'm suing the company to pay me, right? Now, that contractor can win that case if he has proof that they actually did some things that were not in the contract. And you will pay whatever he's asking for at that time. But if the contract has a contract closure checklist that you find that he testified there that you are not owing him, you have not done anything that you pay him for, that will not be your alibi, that will be your case when such a malicious litigation comes up in the future. I can save you and the position a lot of embarrassment. Okay, so that's our lesson for today. Let me give you a few minutes to look at your notes and then indicate that you have questions by raising your hand. So just a quick 5-minute break, maybe 2 minutes. Okay. Okay, let's start with Chaos. Let's hear a question.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for your discussion. I want to ask, what are the merits of FM department doing the procurement for the organization, especially where we have no core procurement department? Do we have any merits or demerits of such thing, happening?
Okay.
Now, my second question is, when do we outsource? Yes, I've seen, when it is, when is it best to outsource? Because a company that want to expand ordinarily will fall into temptation of trying to get all the labor skills involved. So what is your advice, especially for an FM department or organization? When do we advise that we must outsource?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me take the first question. The first one is talking about what the merits or demerits of FM department doing procurement. The reality and the truth is that FM procurement is best done by FMs. There is 100% merit. In fact, because you specify what you want, you know who can do it, you can supervise jobs, in fact, you can have the whole control, right? But when organizations begin to see FM departments not developing proper procurement process, they begin to create a new department to do the procurement for them. Now, when the FM department is doing its own procurement, they should use standardized processes for procurement to remove inefficiencies from the procurement process. Whenever our company policies are adhered to in the procurement process, instead of just trying to bypass policies and go ahead and procure anyhow. If FMs procure right, the FM department is the best to do its own procurement. Now, but the FM department may not procure right, and the FM department may be suspected, and in many cases is guilty of manipulating procurement to fill their own pockets. So ethics is a big reason why companies now want to use segregation of duties. After it's FM that will say, this is what I want, this is what I want. Why are they the ones also going to buy it? Let another person scrutinize what they say they want and go and buy it for them. It's just for control, for ethics, procedural controls. Okay? So if I'm going to move from ideal, FM should do its own procurement, I will move to best practice. Another unit should do the procurement for the FM, but the FM cannot abdicate its responsibilities in procurement. It has to be the one to do other specification, describe the problem, describe the solution, describe the qualification criteria, describe the evaluation criteria, and give those as a template to procurement guys who don't understand FM to do procurement. They are there to control you. And their own goal is to arrive at the cheapest possible alternative for the organization. Your own job is to ensure you specify correctly so that when they come with the cheapest, the organization will win on both ends. So best practice, separate it. Ideally, yes, the FM department should run its own procurement. Did I answer the first question? Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now let's look at the second question. When should you consider outsourcing? Because outsourcing takes away control, gives control to a third party. You may not outsource mission critical activities. I cannot expect a bank outsourcing cash handling. They are doing it nowadays, but if cash handling is the core of the banking, they will have to hold on to it. Or a hotel outsourcing housekeeping, because that's like the core of the hotel. What is mission critical is not outsourced. A hotel may be able to outsource generator maintenance and gardening, but will not outsource their kitchen, for example, because that is the experience people come to feel when they come in housekeeping and kitchen and food, right? So they will not outsource. So mission critical activities, you keep it in-house. So, and then you can outsource everything that is non-core. Okay? Everything that is non-core. Your core business, an insurance company will not outsource their actuarial and their risk managers, right? They won't outsource those, but they can outsource everything else because those are not core to them. The core of their business is more on the actuarial and the risk management aspects of and valuation business that they handle, right? Every organization should know what is core and what is non-core to it. The same thing applies to even you as an FM company. You're running an FM company and you're not a specialist in certain areas. The competencies you have within you, right, and the resources you have can determine what you should outsource. If you know that you cannot deliver something very well and your client is looking for it, take the job, outsource it. So a third party delivers it on your behalf very well than doing a wishy-washy job of it and then not looking good at the end of the day. Okay. I've given you reasons why you should outsource. A mission critical, you don't outsource. Things you want to have control and power over, you keep it in-house, right? Things that are your core, you keep it in-house. Not core, you can give out. Specialties, areas where you are a specialist, you can keep it in-house. Areas where you're not a specialist, you can outsource. Those are the 3 key scenarios, and then you can add more.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Any more questions before we go into the business of today? Victor, you want to remind me, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Victor just reminded me that we're supposed to close out on our class governor. So I have 3 names. It's very unusual. There were 2 names that tied before, but it turned out to be 3 during the course of this class because I saw another person got 1 more nomination. So I said, I'm going to bring it to the class. I'm going to ask, I'll mention their names. And when I mention their names, I will call their names one by one and we'll raise our hand and I will count. Is that okay? Is that okay?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Okay. The 3 of them that tied on 3 nominations each are Chaos, Francis, and Bianana. So let's give a round of applause first for these 3 of them that the class has so much confidence in to be your governors, right? So it wasn't easy for me because usually what I get is one person will get more nominations. So I'll just say the person that has 5 nominations is the one. I'll just call his name here. But now that I have 3 of them tying at 3 nominations, and I have about 2 others with one nomination and 1 with 2 nominations, I just have to bring their names up here for us to call. So I'm going to use in order of their what order should I use to mention the name now so you can vote? Just the way they appear on the screen, right? Okay, so the way they appear on the screen, I have Mr. Bianana first, and then I have Francis, and then I have Chaos, okay? So I'm going to call out Mr. Bianana, and I will have you just raise your hand up on your screen, and I will count. You can't vote twice, so I'll be very looking at the votes. Raise your hand, Mr. Bianana. Mr. Bianana, you have to raise your hand for yourself. Let me see how many hands go for Mr. Bianana. Do it. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, I'm counting again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I'm not calling the remaining 2 yet. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay. Now I'm going to call the next person on the screen is Mr. Francis. Mr. Francis Schneike. All hands can go down now. Go down now. Go down. Go down. Go down first. Go down. Go down. All hands go down. Go down. Go down. Go down. Go down. Go down. Go down, everybody. Francis, you can put your hand up, and then I want other hands to go with it as well. Let's see all those voting Francis. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. I thought I saw 4. Okay, 4. Wait, Chaos, what's going on?
I'm voting now.
Francis, you are voting for opposition party. Why now?
Is allowed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is that a silent protest or what?
Thank you, everybody. So you made it easy for me, Mr. Benana. Thank you very much for the confidence your classmates have in you to represent them as class governor is commendable. And I need to just announce you as usually I don't give you the option of accepting or rejecting, but the classmates say you should be their class governor. I'll just tell you this is what your class has said. Then you now respond by saying what you have in your mind, accept, and then we'll move on. Okay. So it's over to you now.
Okay. First and foremost, I want to thank all of you for the confidence and also this opportunity to serve. It's a call to service. I think that's what it is.
That is it.
Yes, but it's also an opportunity for improvement, because each time you have opportunity to serve, it's an opportunity for improvement and for capacity development. So I want to thank you, and I will strive to deliver on specifications.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So this is fantastic. You're welcome. Barakat will give you the proper information to create a group if you want to, so you can have discussions with the group. I noted from Taufik's comment today that you guys don't like having some discussion in the presence of your teachers. So it's okay. It's okay. You can have a group. You can have your group if you want. And then the main thing really is helping each other, because the last class 12, I'll tell you what class 12 have done. They have really impressed me. Within that class, employing each other happened 6 times, like somebody employing somebody from the class into his team. Referral happened about 3 or 4 times, where somebody pointed someone else to go and get a job somewhere. That happened. In fact, I had a scenario where one person was leaving a job, going to another company, advertised that his own vacancy in that group. And when the interview was done, somebody from that class, stepped into the job that he left, and it was just fantastic for me. And then they did something else that was very interesting. They started this socialization where they would have a meeting once in a while, just to discuss welfare, discuss professional challenges, discuss, anything that has to do with FM industry. And then they brought me into one of those meetings, and I was surprised how well organized they bonded. I would like to see that level of bonding happen on a class-to-class basis, because the whole idea of any alumni is to ensure that we don't leave anybody behind, right? Everybody are carried, forward. There are certain of us that find ourselves in a class. In a class where all figures are not necessarily equal, right? Some are more equal than others, like they say. But because we care for each other, we have ways of supporting each other professionally. And that's what I would like to see happening in this alumni. Beyond your class, there's the wider alumni, because the moment we end the class and you are taking your exams, we'll add you up to the main alumni group automatically. And then that group, by this December, during our graduation, we're going to have an alumni council that's going to be constituted with the class president, class governors of each of those classes. This group will now meet maybe once in 3 months, once in 6 months, just to look at the trend in the FM industry, look at how our alumni are doing professionally, and come up with some recommendations to improve the program for those who are joining in. Ask for incentives from the management on things that we can do to support the alumni and people they want to bring in to the training and so on and so forth. There are so many things we can do creatively with this association. Okay, so congratulations and welcome on board, and I hope you have a good time. Okay.
Thank you, sir, and thank you once more to the class.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Nana, congratulations.
Congratulations, oh, class governor.
Congratulations, Banana.
Mr. Governor.
Congrats.
When are we doing the party?
Congrats.
Watch it now.
God bless you.
Of course, we'll watch it too.